La 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 la. Wah 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 wah. Ooh wah. Time to talk some Vinegar Syndrome, guys, and today we're talking about the July package from Vinegar Syndrome, specifically that being Perfect Strangers, the 11th Commandment, and the Naughty Victorians. Now, this is a little awkward. I'm not a big fan of this package, and I feel bad about that, but we're going to get into that. Today we're talking about two thrillers with questionable scenes featuring older gentlemen interacting with children in very awkward fashion, as well as a pornographic film about rape. Huzzah!
I don't mind a joke in the least, but you go too far, sir.
So first, let's dig into Perfect Strangers. Let's see. Johnny, a mafia contract killer, has just completed his latest hit. However, as he's preparing to leave the scene of the crime, he notices that someone is watching. The witness turns out to be a young child, but Johnny is uncertain as to how much he's seen and how much he'll be able to describe. Proceeding cautiously, he begins a dangerous seduction of the child's single mother, but soon discovers that his budding affair puts both himself and his new lover in ever-increasing danger. So they call this a stylish neo-noir. I don't know about that, guys. So Larry Cohen is one of the best directors of all time, as far as I'm concerned. He put together some incredible work under less than optimal circumstances. He is a king, an absolute king of the low-budget genre filmmaking genre. Of low-budget genre filmmaking. There we go. And he is undoubtedly a great of greats. But every so often, even he was fallible, and for me, Perfect Strangers is sadly one of those instances. Now, I know a lot of people like this movie. I looked at the Letterboxd, and I saw a lot of 3.5 out of 5s, a few 4s, even a 5, I think. And I don't get it. It is For me, not a good film. And that's why I'm starting with this one. It is the bottom of the pile for me. Sadly, I was really excited for this, and I wouldn't say that it's without its merits. It's no Vice Academy. It certainly has quality aspects. Unfortunately, like, it's just not very good. Basically, it is How to Be an Awful Fucking Mother, the movie. And in the titular role of the mother, we have Anne Carlisle. Anne Carlisle, probably best known for writing and starring in Liquid Sky. And, you know, that is a great little artsy flick. Definitely not for everybody, but you should check it out. It's on Shudder right now, I believe. And, you know, that's a really solid performance from her. And she actually, just to give credit where credit is due, Anne Carlisle does a very good job with what she's given in this film. She is probably the best actor. A lot of the acting in this is not great. The father, specifically, is not very well portrayed. He kind of ex-husband. He's kind of awful. But basically, Anne Carlisle, she has this kid who is a terrible actor. Now, he's also like a toddler, so I wouldn't expect him to be a good actor. But, you know, Larry, in the interview on the disc, he mentions that this actor seemed very attentive. He, you know, made eye contact, all that sort of thing, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, cool. But that's not what makes a good child actor. A good child actor would be one that is slightly older, because it's obviously a pain in the butt to get this kid to act. And throughout the film, that was like a big. There are two big sticking points. One of the big sticking points for me was that this kid was obviously not an actor and just doesn't work in the role. Like, every so often it kind of works, but usually you can tell, and they kind of, in the bonus features, they seem to think that they pulled this off really well, and I don't think they did. There's this idea that they float that the kid, whenever he was doing like random bullshit, they kind of tied it in nicely to the film and gave the characters like really natural reactions to that fit the story, and they rewrote things to accommodate this child. And you can tell, like, before I watched the interviews, I was pointing it out in my initial viewing, like, they're obviously accommodating this child. They're obviously trying to make this work, and that's not good. I shouldn't be thinking about that while watching a film.
I got a question for you. Is there something wrong with him?
The other big thing that really bugged me was just how bad this mother really is. Like, I get that it was the 80s. I understand that times were different. But goddamn, this is the worst mother of all time. Like, there's like this weird feminist subplot that I think Larry only added to the film because he had access, like, he knew there was like this feminist rally happening, and he knew he could get some cameras in there, and so he worked it into the plot. I really don't think that it has that much significance within the plot, especially when you consider just how willing she is to leave her son alone with this strange man that she's just met, who, by the way, she starts flirting with after he has been following her around New York City. That's a red flag, lady. Like, there's no way this guy has good intentions. And he, like, is very intent on this child the entire time. Like, there's red flag, red flag, red flag. And the movie just keeps on going as if this is the natural way to do things. And if it was a less capable filmmaker, I actually think that it would work in sort of a silly, haha, this is so stupid kind of way. But Larry Cohen put so much quality work into this film, trying to make a legitimate thriller, that I feel like it kind of gets a little lopsided and it doesn't quite work. That being said, of course, a lot of people enjoy this movie, so this is totally just my opinion. There's a very good chance that you will enjoy this film. A lot of people have. It's just, for me, not a very good flick. And honestly, I was rooting for the ex-husband the entire time.
I didn't think it was a good idea to have Matthew, so I gave her money to have it stopped.
I maintain my stance. And there's a lot of very kind of unintentionally awkward moments throughout the film.
That's supposed to be a nursery rhyme, not child porn.
Another thing is that the plot, it feels like a lot of stretching out to get all these plot points in. You can tell that Larry had this great idea. This kid who can't talk sees a murder, and the killer has to ingratiate himself with the kid's mother, as a way to, like, see if he needs to shut this kid up. But there's a lot of problems with that. One is that I can never quite tell what this guy's motivation is. Brad, what's his name? His name's Brad something or another. Brad Ridgen. Brad Reen? Say Brad Reen? Is that how you say his name? Ryan? Ridgen? Whatever. Brad. He is an interesting character. Like, you can see conflicted nature to him. I really like the kind of melodramatic way he creates these shadows out of graffiti on the side of walls, and I think that all comes together for a pretty satisfying concluding image. I feel like it's another one of those things where Larry had this idea and he just needed it in there, because I feel like it's kind of disengaged from the rest of the plot a little bit. And part of that is I can never quite tell if he actually wants to get rid of this kid or if he really is falling in love with the mother. And I think as it goes on, that's what you're supposed to get, is that he's trying to see if this kid needs to be knocked off. He realizes he's probably fine, and he falls in love with the mother, but it just, I don't know, maybe it's the acting, and Carlisle, again, is like the only really strong performance. Brad is good, but she's the only one that really delivers, and then she's, of course, hampered by the writing, which makes her off to be the fucking worst. And beyond those factors, let's see, Stephen Lack shows up briefly as a detective, and he is Stephen Lack. Stephen Lack has never been an amazing actor. He's just, I feel like he just stumbles into these productions, but he's at least admirably weird in his delivery, so that helps a little bit. Whereas the guy who plays the ex-husband is just generally not very interesting to watch. But he is part of the probably most interesting sequence as a fan of Larry Cohen. Larry Cohen was very well known for guerrilla filmmaking, and I think Black Caesar was probably the most notable moment in his career as far as guerrilla filmmaking, where he has the main character bleeding from a wound in the streets of New York, just like stumbling and running through the streets of New York. And it's real people that he's passing by, and Larry has his telephoto lens and he's just watching from afar. And they do that again in this film, and according to Larry Cohen, it almost went very poorly, and you can tell. And Larry Cohen even makes a little cameo appearance by sheer happenstance, because he had to make sure his actor didn't die. So that's a cool sequence, and there's cool thing. Like, the thing about Larry Cohen movies is you can always use them to learn a bit more about independent filmmaking, because there's always these little touches. And I relate to a guy who just he finds these little things and he's like, gotta put that in the movie. I totally get that. I've had that happen. I 100% feel it. But in the end, I just don't think this is a very good film, and for me was just kind of boring or completely mind-numbingly stupid. And I hate to say that. It honestly hurts to say anything negative about a Larry Cohen movie, but for me it's a complete fail. For extras, we get an archival interview with Larry Cohen. Runs nearly 9 minutes. It was taken from the King Cohen documentary, and so it's just basically a deleted scene from that doc. Just his general comments on Perfect Strangers. Again, 9 minutes. You can tell he doesn't have a whole lot to say about this production, nor really should he. But he talks about his impressions of the actors, his directing style, that guerrilla filmmaking moment that I just talked about. It's a good interview, and gives you more reason to go watch King Cohen, which I think is on Shudder as well, maybe. Either way, go see King Cohen. It's an amazing documentary. We also get a video interview with Anne Carlisle that runs roughly 7.5 minutes. This one was conducted over a video call because, again, COVID. And she's interesting. She's a weird lady. She does a lot of sculptures of things involving vaginas, as it turns out. Although she only describes them, I think, as bowls. But I went to her website, and it's a lot of vaginas. But she talks about her start in the industry. She talks a little bit about Liquid Sky. She talks about working with Larry, working with the kid actor, stuff like that. Perfectly fine interview, just kind of short. And that's it. That's all we get as far as extras on that disc. So Perfect Strangers, I'm glad to have this movie in my collection, certainly, just because it's a Larry Cohen film, and I would love to own every Larry Cohen movie. But just definitely the least interesting of my collection thus far. Next up, will my middle favorite be the porno, or will it be the other thriller in the collection? And it is the other thriller. Yes, sir. The 11th Commandment. I watched this one first, and I was honestly pretty certain it would be on the bottom for me, but there's just enough here to really work. So let's take a look at how they describe it on the back of the case here. Robert Knight has been committed to an insane asylum by his greedy and potentially murderous Uncle Charles. as a means of depriving him of his rightful inheritance. But his time in the asylum has indeed turned Robert into a violent lunatic, fashioning himself a priestly avenger due to his years at the seminary. After murdering a nurse and orderly, Robert escapes from the asylum and begins slashing his way through anyone who stands between his avenging the actions of his uncle. I feel like that should be between him and his avenging, or between his avenging. It's a weird sentence. Anyway, but Uncle Charles has some deadly tricks up his sleeve as well. Yeah, so they describe this as a seedy and perverse slasher soap opera. Yeah, so Paul Leader directed this one. He's most notable for I Dismember Mama, which is a very similar film. By the way, I love the slipcover artwork on this, or the insert artwork, rather. This is fantastic. I'd actually would have preferred this to the slipcover art, to be honest. But really good stuff. So I definitely like this one more than Perfect Strangers, obviously. I can't say that this is a phenomenal film. I do think that it is a interesting movie, and it's definitely at least pretty entertaining. It does have some sluggish moments. It's basically just guy stabs people in the gut, the movie, aka let's take little cousin Deborah out for a hot dog, the movie. I don't know where I'm going with this. So yeah, this guy, he kidnaps his cousin, and he wants to take revenge on his uncle, who's responsible for putting him in a psychiatric ward. Of course, he also is a murderer, and that may or may not be because of his treatment at the facility. And it's interesting. There is a fantastic central performance by Bernard White. Now, he's actually gone on to a pretty successful career. He's kind of one of those that guys. He's appeared in some Marvel movies. He's appeared in some other big things. And he just kind of shows up in stuff all the time. So good for him. And you can see in this film where that talent is. He's great. He has a lot of subtlety to his performance. It's a very somewhat out there performance, if only because he plays this crazy person who's going on and on about Christianity and is kind of this very pure individual when he's not stabbing people in the stomach. Dick Sargent is also really solid in this film. You get to see him play a truly villainous character, which is very nice. Marilyn Hassett plays the cousin-in-law, the sister-in-law of Dick Sargent, I think. It doesn't matter. Point is, this family has gathered in this house, and they're all conniving and scheming against each other, and all the while, Bernard White is heading that way with Deborah to brutally murder them, and things don't go exactly as planned for anyone in the film, and so, it keeps you guessing. It's a very fun premise, although it does feel a little slight in the end. It's not the most engaging, it's not the most pretty to look at, but you do get a really solid central performance, and I think that is worth its weight in gold, and really elevates this. It also gets a very good performance out of its child actor, which is a complete 180 from the previous film that we talked about. In this case, the child actor is actually one of the highlights. So, awesome. Fantastic. There's also a lot of what the fuck moments that I think help string things along. As I said, it's it's a very scant film. There's not really a ton of plot going on. So you kind of find the protagonist getting into these situations that inevitably end in him stabbing someone in the gut. There's one scene with a motel manager who's like really into him sexually, and things get weird.
Would you like a drink?
Oh, thank you, but it's kind of late. Thank you, though.
Well, maybe for a 9-year-old.
And I don't know why she's so into him. He's a very meek character. He's not like built or anything. Cute, I guess. I guess he's a cute guy, sure. But weird thing, that scene. There's also this detective character who, another similarity, I guess, to Perfect Strangers is the detective is real weird and has some really interesting acting choices, and the ending regarding the detective is utterly bizarre. And I think all these little bizarre touches are what make this film a little bit better than Perfect Strangers. It's definitely one I'm more interested in going back to. There's not as much interesting filmmaking choices going on. It's definitely more drab, but it's certainly more entertaining, and I think it deserves a higher rating than it has on like IMDb and Letterboxd. I think it's a much better film than a lot of people might be giving it credit for. So definitely worth a look, but neither film really blew me away. As far as extras, for this one. You get a Bernard White interview that lasts 17 minutes. It's conducted remotely. It's a really solid interview, about as dope as Bernard's beard, actually. He talks, working with Paul Eder, how nice Paul Eder was to him, how he gave him these great roles, how nice it was to cast someone. He's a Sri Lankan American, and it was so nice to cast him in this role that really feels like it was written for a white guy. So it's pretty cool that he did that. And, he talks working with the rest of the cast, talks shooting at the mental hospital, stuff like that. Very solid stuff from Bernard White, and just a nice, long, charming interview. Definitely the best interview of this set of films. Lauren Woodland, who plays Deborah in the film, she's also interviewed remotely. That's about that one's just under 12 minutes. She talks about the complexity of Robert as a character, memories from the set, that sort of thing. She does commit that cardinal sin of suggesting that horror is a lesser genre, but I'm willing to give her a pass on this one. She seems like a charming kid. Give her a pass, but don't let it fucking happen again. I think my big problem with these two films is that they just don't seem to be made by anyone who actually has children or has been around children, which is weird because I know Larry Cohen and Paul Eder were both fathers, and I feel like they were both fathers during the making of these movies. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they're both fathers by now. And yet, I honestly don't feel that at all. These films feel so disconnected from how you should be treating children, how you should be portraying children. They're just so weird. And I think the 11th Commandment definitely does it better, but that's mostly on account of the acting. Either way, the use of children in these movies is very strange, especially Perfect Strangers. Perfect Strangers, if you want to just talk weird use of children, knocks 11th Commandment out of the park. 11th Commandment just feels a little silly in its portrayal, whereas Perfect Strangers feels fake and wrong. Finally, my number one film from this box, oddly enough, The Naughty Victorians. I think this is the first time a porno has been the number one film, and this is an interesting one. Let's look at the synopsis as Vinegar Syndrome has stated it. Jack, played by Birbam Tree, weird name, is a wealthy society man with a perverse secret. In the basement of his stately London home, he has constructed an elaborate series of contraptions which he uses to bind and have his way with unsuspecting young women. However, his first conquest, Alice, discovers that she enjoys her torments and soon becomes Jack's willing accomplice in luring other ladies into his house of forbidden pleasures. Adapted from the famed and anonymously authored Victorian novella, The Way of a Man with a Maid. So this is directed by, let's see what they say, acclaimed theater director Robert Sickinger. And man, you can tell that it's a theater director at the helm in all the good ways. It feels very much like a film that took the acting very seriously. It feels like a film that was very carefully lit and designed from a set standpoint. It feels very careful in its production. And honestly, pretty fucking good movie. Not a pun. It's just, I say fuck a lot. So on the one hand, this is not great timing for this release. Obviously, we have the whole Ghislaine Maxwell thing happening right now, and while I was watching the film, I was like, oh, this is a little awkward. But, if you can get past that, if you can get past the rapiness of the plot, which is obviously a bit of a tough sell, but let's just assume that everybody can get past that aspect. This is actually a really good movie. It is entertaining. It's very funny.
Dear lady, if the rest of you is like what I have just discovered, then a banquet awaits us.
Especially in the beginning, there's a lot of funny little Britishisms kind of sprinkled throughout, a lot of kind of poking fun at Victorian etiquette and technology. And when it comes to the actual, the fucking, what you get is a pretty erotic time. Again, you have to get past the rapiness. It helps that all of these moments inevitably lead to the characters discovering new passions within themselves, but it is kind of a very man's view of what a woman would be into in the BDSM scene. But that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing is anti-woman. I would actually say that it is, in the end, fairly feminist. There are some pitfalls to that feminism, certainly. It is feminism through a man's perspective, and so you inevitably do get, and it's also a porn. It's meant to get people to come, so little problems like that arise, but In the end, and I don't want to spoil anything, but in the end, it gets pretty feminist, and I think the women in the audience who get frustrated by Jack's proclivities are going to have themselves a pretty good time. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it is a pretty great ending. Like, solid stuff. Susan Sloan, who had previously done a few porno films under the name Nova Kane, of all things, she does a great job here as Alice. She reminds me visually of like Elizabeth Moss, and so it's interesting to see her in this Victorian setting and kind of taking on her own strong female lead role. It's very well done. She's very understated throughout a lot of the film in a very smart way. I think a lot of that has to do with the director being a theater director, being very on it when it comes to the performances here, and she really just like manages to keep all of it together. You know, you actually believe that she is getting turned on by this scenario, and I think that's super important. If you had a bad actress in this role, someone who just couldn't deliver a line, I think it would fall apart really fast. And so kudos to Susan Sloan. She fucking, I wouldn't say saves this film, but she definitely is an integral part to its success. Same goes for Beer Bun Tree, which obviously is stage name. He, as Jack, is extremely dry. I wouldn't say that he is the most likable character around, but he gets close to being likable. He has this very sort of like, you know, he walks around like he's some kind of cat, basically. Like he's very chill. He's very leisurely in his movements, and I think that helps immensely and really sells the upper class douchebaggery of this character, which, when portrayed in such a confident way, yeah, is kind of charming at times, and also really helps with the eventual finale quite a bit. Which, fun fact about Beer Bun Tree, by the way, he has very few credits to his name, as far as I can find, but one of them was Skin Flicks by Gerard Damiano, a film that we will eventually be covering on this channel. So yeah, as long as you don't take this film too seriously, and you can get past the fact that there is rape and also, spoilers, incest in the film, if you can get through that, which, again, challenging, or maybe not if you're like really into Pornhub right now. Anyway, if you can get past those elements and just enjoy it for what it is and kind of take it as sort of a Marquis de Sade-esque tale of fantasy, then it's a really enjoyable ride, very well shot, not staggeringly well shot, but well shot nonetheless, very well lit, and with some really, really strong performances. I recommend this film. I don't highly recommend it, but I would definitely recommend this, especially if you're looking to get in to Vinegar Syndrome pornos. This one feels much more accessible, again, with that little asterisk that it does contain rape and incest. As far as extras go, the only big extra is that we get a commentary. Of all of these, I was really hoping for a commentary for either of the other two, but we didn't get that. We do get a commentary. It's a bit of a historical commentary by Dr. Lauren Helen Marks. She wrote a book called Alice in Pornoland, which I'm very intrigued to buy now because she is a great commentary voice. She's not the least dry in the world, but she keeps things engaging. She has a lot of little factoids about this era in pornography, about the original book, about the film itself. And I think that, for a porno title to get a commentary that's this in-depth and legitimately intriguing, good shit. Beyond that, we get a trailer, which is actually pretty interesting. They kind of interview people in the streets, as well as a slideshow of images, which is fine. And if you look very carefully, you also might find a little Easter egg for a future discount. But I'm not going to tell you where it is. That's called teasing. So as far as the restorations of these films, Naughty Victorians is a scan of the 35mm negative, so it is really good looking, and I would say actually probably the best looking film of the bunch. We get a 2K scan of the 35mm inner positive for 11th Commandment. Oddly enough, the second best looking, and I know this is crazy, but for Perfect Strangers, we get, let's see, what does it say? Presents this underseen thriller in a new 2K restoration and on Blu-ray for the first time. So I don't actually know what the deal is with this film's restoration, but it looks fine. None of them are bad transfers by any means, but as usual, Vinegar Syndrome does a great job with the transfers, and of course, putting these out on Blu-ray. They always put out very shockingly underseen films, and it's always nice to have these little guys in my collection and be able to see them in the best possible quality is really quite nice. So as always, even when I am a little disappointed with Vinegar Syndrome, I still find myself really enjoying things. And I just want to point out again, Perfect Strangers specifically, but both Perfect Strangers and The 11th Commandment have really, really high scores from other people. Especially Perfect Strangers. There's a lot of people who say this is one of Larry Cohen's best movies, which I think is insane. But I can understand where they're coming from. There's a lot of really beautiful shots in that film. And, you know, the hitman character in that is interesting. It's just, I don't think it's very well baked at the end. I feel like it, you know, a little too short of a time in the oven, so to speak. And that's unfortunate. But whatever. Let's end this. First off, before I leave you, I do want to mention the latest patrons. So we have a bunch of new patrons who started giving Michael his money in July, and of course we always want to give special notice to those that are on the WTF tier. That tier is $10 a month, and it gives you access to the Discord as well as some exclusive videos. $3 tier also includes exclusives, but just, you know, you get a slight bit less. One of the big things that you get that I think everybody really needs this tier for, because it really, it's pretty special, is I say your name. And when I say your name, it's like, ooh, that Michael, he's saying my name. Dumb. Anyway, Lori, thank you so much, Lori, for giving to my patron. Jeremiah Schaefer. Jeremiah is active on the Discord. He's a cool dude. Bryce Lawson, you have a name that reminds me of, like, I don't know, like a manservant. I think you probably just go around in a tuxedo all the time, I'm assuming, and like have like a silver tray in your hand. You're like serving people platters and like finger foods. That's what I'm assuming anyway. Bryce. Daniel Roth, I assume you're related to Eli Roth, so say hi to that guy for me. And of course, Matthew Spalding, who most notably, he was a big factor in me buying all of Andy Sedaris' films on Blu-ray, so thank you so much, Matthew. And yeah, and of course, thanks to all the $3 patrons as well. These are just the latest and greatest. We actually have a bunch of new patrons on the $10 level who I'll be talking about next month. Of course, I have to wait month to month because of how Patreon works. But thanks so much to everybody who's donated. We are at 33 patrons now, assuming everything goes through next month. So that's pretty cool. Gotta say, that is pretty effing hip, G. And of course, big thanks as well to All That Is Man for upping his patron donation for the month of August to $50 so that he can sponsor our musical episodes this month. Yes, we are doing several musical episodes. We have 4 on the books. Very excited about those. Please check them out. Of course, we've already put out Shock Treatment. We have another one coming out next week. Check it out. I think that you'll really enjoy those videos. And yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that jazz. Check me out on the Fossbooks and the Twittersphere and the Instagrams. If you're a new patron, of course, on the $10 level, come join the Discord. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, go watch a movie.
Cucumber sandwiches! How recklessly extravagant.